Hare Krishna, dear devotees, welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books, right here in Hythe, Kent, southeast England, next to the English Channel. We call it the Haven because Hythe, translated into Anglo-Saxon, is haven actually. So once again, we're trying to create a safe haven for anyone to come through these readings and hear the absolute truth for their own upliftment spiritually and spiritual benefit. We hope all of you out in cyberspace are safe and well and happy, even though the world is going through such difficult times. This is the solution, to spread this transcendental sound. Srimad Bhagavata Mahima Stotram by Srila Sanatana Goswami goes like this. Sarva Shastrabdi Piyusha Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnaja Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana, Srimad Bhagavata Prabho, Kali Dvandoditaditya, Sri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshakshadayate Sarvada Savasevyaya Sri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Matsangin Madguro Man Mahadana Man Nistadaga Mad Bhagya Mad Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Sadhu, sadhuta dayin, atini chochata kada, ha namun chagadachin mam, prem narit kantayuk spuda. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, we've reached the Bhagavad-gita chapter 9, the confidential knowledge, most confidential knowledge, beginning with text 11. Avajananti mam mudha manushim tanumastritam padam bhavamajananto mama bhuta maheshwaram. Fools deride me when I descend in the human form. They do not know my transcendental nature as the Supreme Lord of all that be. Purport. From the other explanations of the previous verses in this chapter, it is clear that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, although appearing like a human being, is not a common man. the personality of Godhead, who conducts the creation, maintenance, and annihilation of the complete cosmic manifestation, cannot be a human being. Yet there are many foolish men who consider Krishna to be merely a powerful man and nothing more. Actually, he is the original personality of Godhead, as is confirmed in the Brahma Samhita, Ishwarat Paramak Krishna. He is the Supreme Lord. There are many Ishwaras, controllers, and one appears greater than another. In the ordinary management of affairs in the material world, we find some official or director, and above him there is a secretary, and above him a minister, and above him a president. Each of them is a controller, but one is controlled by another. In the Brahma Samhita, it is said that Krishna is the supreme controller. There are many controllers, undoubtedly, both in the material and the spiritual world. But Krishna is the supreme controller, Ishwarat Paramak Krishna, and his body is Satchit Ananda, non-material. Material bodies cannot perform the wonderful acts described in previous verses. His body is eternal, blissful, and full of knowledge. Although he is not a common man, the foolish deride him and consider him to be a man. His body is called here Manushim because he is acting just like a man, a friend of Arjuna's, a politician involved in the battle of Kurukshetra. In so many ways, he is acting just like an ordinary man, but actually his body is Satchit Ananda Vigraha, eternal bliss and knowledge absolute. This is confirmed in the Vedic language also. Satchidananda Rupaya Krishnaya. I offer my obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, who is the eternal, blissful form of knowledge. Gopal Tapani Upanishad 1:1. There are other descriptions in the Vedic language also. Tam ekam Govindam. You are Govinda, the pleasure of the senses and the cows. Satchidananda Vigraha. Satchidananda Vigraham. And your form is transcendental, full of knowledge, bliss, and eternality. Gopal Tapani Upanishad 1:38. Despite the transcendental qualities of Lord Krishna's body, its full bliss and knowledge, there are many so-called scholars and commentators of Bhagavad-gita who deride Krishna as an ordinary man. The scholar may be born an extraordinary man due to his previous good work, but this conception of Sri Krishna is due to a poor fund of knowledge. Therefore he is called Mudha. For Sri Krishna is due. Therefore he is called Mudha, for only foolish persons consider Krishna to be an ordinary human being. The foolish consider Krishna an ordinary human being because they do not know the confidential activities of the Supreme Lord and his different energies. They do not know that Krishna's body is a symbol. They do not know that Krishna's body is a symbol of complete knowledge and bliss, that he is the proprietor of everything. Excuse my voice tonight. Excuse, please. They do not know that Krishna's body is a symbol of complete knowledge and bliss, that he is the proprietor of everything that be, and that he can award liberation to anyone. Because they do not know that Krishna has so many transcendental qualifications, they deride him. Nor do they know that the appearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in this material world is a manifestation of his internal energy. He is the master of the material energy. As has been explained in several places, Mama Maya Duratyaya. He claims that the material energy, although very powerful, is under his control, and whoever surrenders unto him can get out of the influence of material energy. If a soul surrendered to Krishna can get out of the influence of the material energy, then how can the Supreme Lord, who conducts the creation, maintenance, and annihilation of the whole cosmic nature, have a material body like ours, like us? So this conception of Krishna is complete foolishness. Foolish persons, however, cannot conceive that the personality of Godhead Krishna, appearing just like an ordinary man, can be the controller of all the atoms and of the gigantic manifestation of the universal form. The biggest and minutest are beyond their conception, so they cannot imagine that a form like that of a human being can simultaneously control the infinite and the minute. Actually, although he is controlling the infinite and the finite, he is apart from all this manifestation. It is clearly stated concerning his Yogam Aishwaram, his inconceivable transcendental energy, that he can control the infinite and the finite simultaneously, and that he can remain aloof from them. Although the foolish cannot imagine how Krishna, who appears just like a human being, can control the infinite and the finite, those who are pure devotees accept this, for they know that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore they completely surrender unto him and engage in Krishna consciousness, devotional service of the Lord. There are many controversies between the impersonalists and the personalists about the Lord's appearance as a human being. But if we consult Bhagavad-gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, the authoritative texts for understanding the science of Krishna, then we can understand that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is not an ordinary man, although he appeared on this earth as an ordinary human. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st canto, 1st chapter, when the sages headed by Shonaka inquired about the activities of Krishna, they said, Kritavan kila karmani saharamena keshava atimartyani bhagavan gudat kapatamanushaha. Lord Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, along with Balaram, played like an ordinary being, played like a human being. And so masked, he performed many superhuman acts. Bhagavatam 1:1-20. The Lord's appearance as a man bewilders the foolish. No human being could perform the wonderful acts that Krishna performed while he was present on this earth. When Krishna appeared before his father and mother, Vasudeva and Devaki, he appeared with 4 hands. But after the prayers of the parents, he transformed himself into an ordinary child. as stated in the Bhagavatam 10.3, 46, Babhuva prakritak shishu. He became just like an ordinary child, an ordinary human being. Now here again, it is indicated that the Lord's appearance as an ordinary human being is one of the features of his transcendental body. In the 11th chapter of Bhagavad-gita, also, it is stated that Arjuna prayed to see Krishna's form of 4 hands, Tenaiva Rupena Chatur Bhujena. After revealing this form, Krishna, when petitioned by Arjuna, again assumed his original human-like form, Manushanam Rupam. Manusham Rupam. These different features of the Supreme Lord are certainly not those of an ordinary human being. Some of those who deride Krishna and who are infected with the Mayavadi philosophy quote the following verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam 3:29-21 to prove that Krishna is just an ordinary man. Aham sarveshu bhuteshu bhutatma vastitak sada. The Supreme is present in every living entity. We should better take note of this particular verse from the Vaishnava-Ācāryas like Jiva Goswami and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, instead of following the interpretation of We should better take note of this particular verse from the Vaishnava-Ācāryas like Jiva Goswami and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, instead of following the interpretation of unauthorized persons who deride Krishna. Jiva Goswami, commenting on this verse, says that Krishna, in his plenary expansion as Paramatma, is situated in the moving and the non-moving entities as the Supersoul. So any neophyte devotee who simply gives his attention to the Archa Murti, the form of the Supreme Lord in the temple, and does not respect other living entities, is uselessly worshipping the form of the Lord in the temple. There are 3 kinds of devotees of the Lord, and the neophyte is in the lowest stage. The neophyte devotee gives more attention to the deity in the temple than to other devotees. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur warns that this sort of mentality should be corrected. A devotee should see that because Krishna is present in everyone's heart as Paramatma, every body is the embodiment or the temple of the Supreme Lord. So as one offers respect to the temple of the Lord, he should similarly properly respect each and every body in which the Paramatma dwells. Everyone should therefore be given proper respect and should not be neglected. There are also many impersonalists who deride temple worship. They say that God is everywhere. Why should one restrict himself to temple worship? But if God is everywhere, is he not in the temple or in the deity? Although the personalist and the impersonalist will fight with one another perpetually, a perfect devotee in Krishna consciousness knows that although Krishna is the Supreme Personality, he is all-pervading, as confirmed in the Brahma Samhita. Although his personal abode is Goloka Vrindavan, and he is always staying there, by his different manifestations of energy and by his plenary expansion, he is present everywhere, in all parts of the material and spiritual creation. What a purport. Prabhupada. Text 12. mogasha, moga karma no, moga jnana vichetasaha, rakshasim asurim chaiva, prakritim mohinim shritaha. Those who are thus bewildered are attracted by demonic and atheistic views. In that deluded condition, their hopes for liberation, their fruitive activities, and their culture of knowledge are all defeated. There are many devotees who assume themselves to be in Krishna consciousness and devotional service, but at heart do not accept the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, as the absolute truth. For them, the fruit of devotional service, going back to Godhead, will never be tasted. Similarly, those who are engaged in fruitive, pious activities and who are ultimately hoping to be liberated from this material entanglement will never be successful either, because they deride the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. In other words, persons who mock Krishna are to be understood to be demonic or atheistic. As described in the 7th chapter of Bhagavad-gita, such demonic miscreants never surrender to Krishna. Therefore, their mental speculations to arrive at the absolute truth bring them to the false conclusion that the ordinary living entity and Krishna are one and the same. With such a false conviction, they think that the body of with such a false conviction, they think that the body of any human being is now simply covered by material nature, and that as soon as one is liberated from this material body, there is no difference between God and himself. This attempt to become one with Krishna will be baffled because of delusion. Such atheistic and demoniac cultivation of spiritual knowledge is always futile. That is the indication of this verse. For such persons, cultivation of the knowledge in the Vedic literature, like the Vedanta Sutra and the Upanishads, is always baffled. It is a great offense, therefore, to consider Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to be an ordinary man. Those who do so are certainly deluded because they cannot understand the eternal form of Krishna. The Brihad Vishnu Smriti clearly states, Yo veti bhautikam deham Krishnasya paramatmanaha sa sarvasmad bahiskarya shrauta smarta vidanataha mukam tasyavalokyapi sachelam snanam acharet. One who considers the body of Krishna to be material should be driven out from all rituals and activities of the Shruti and Smriti. That's a very heavy statement. One who considers the body of Krishna to be material should be driven out from all rituals and activities of the Shruti and Smriti. And if one by chance sees his face, one should at once take bath in the Ganges to rid himself of infection. People jeer at Krishna because they are envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Their destiny is certainly to take birth after birth in the species of atheistic and demoniac life. Perpetually, their real knowledge will remain under delusion, and gradually they will regress to the darkest region of creation. Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Text 13. Mahatmanas tumam partha Daivim Prakritim Ashritaha Bhajantyananya Manaso Gyata Bhutadvim Gyatva Bhutadim Avyayam. O son of Pritha, those who are not deluded, the great souls, are under the protection of the divine nature. They are fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, original and inexhaustible. Purport. In this verse, the description of the Mahatma is clearly given. The first sign of the Mahatma is that he is already situated in the divine nature. He is not under the control of material nature. And how is this effected? That is explained in the 7th chapter. One who surrenders under the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, at once becomes freed from the control of material nature. That is the qualification. One can become free from the control of material nature as soon as he surrenders his soul to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the preliminary formula. Being marginal potency, as soon as the living entity is freed from the control of material nature, he is put under the guidance of the spiritual nature. The guidance of the spiritual nature is called Daivi Prakriti, divine nature. So when one is promoted in that way, by surrendering to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one attains to the stage of Great Soul, Mahatma. The Mahatma does not divert his attention to anything outside Krishna, because he knows perfectly well that Krishna is the original Supreme Person, the cause of all causes. There is no doubt about it. Such a Mahatma, or great soul, develops through association with other Mahatmas, pure devotees. Pure devotees are not even attracted by Krishna's other features, such as the four-armed Mahavishnu. They are simply attracted by the two-armed form of Krishna. They are not attracted to other features of Krishna, nor are they concerned with any form of a demigod or of a human being. They meditate only upon Krishna in Krishna consciousness. They are always engaged in the unswerving service of the Lord in Krishna consciousness. Text 14. Satatam kirtayanto mam yatantascha dridavrtaha namasyantascha mam bhaktya nityayukta upasate. Always chanting my glories, endeavoring with great determination, bowing down before me, these great souls perpetually worship me with devotion. Purport. The Mahatma cannot be manufactured by rubber stamping an ordinary man. His symptoms are described here. A Mahatma is always engaged in chanting the glories of the Supreme Lord Krishna, the Personality of Godhead. He has no other business. He is always engaged in the glorification of the Lord. In other words, he is not an impersonalist. When the question of glorification is there, one has to glorify the Supreme Lord, praising His holy name, His eternal form, His transcendental qualities, and His uncommon pastimes. One has to glorify all these things. Therefore, a Mahatma is attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One who is attached to the impersonal feature of the Supreme Lord, the Brahmajyoti, is not described as Mahatma in the Bhagavad-gita. He is described in a different way in the next verse. The Mahatma is always engaged in different activities of devotional service, as described in the Srimad Bhagavatam, hearing and chanting about Vishnu, not a demigod or human being. That is devotion. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, and Smaranam, remembering him. Such a Mahatma has firm determination to achieve at the ultimate end the association of the Supreme Lord in any one of the 5 activities, mental, bodily, and vocal. I'm sorry. That was an eye skip. I'll read it again. Such a Mahatma has firm determination to achieve at the ultimate end the association of the Supreme Lord in any one of the 5 transcendental rasas. To achieve that success, he engages all activities, mental, bodily, and vocal, everything in the service of the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna. That is called full Krishna consciousness. In devotional service, there are certain activities which are called determined, such as fasting on certain days, like the 11th day of the moon, Ekadashi, and on the appearance day of the Lord. All these rules and regulations are offered by the great Acharyas for those who are actually interested in getting admission into the association of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the transcendental world. The Mahatmas, great souls, strictly observe all these rules and regulations, and therefore they are sure to achieve the desired result. As described in the 2nd verse of this chapter, not only is this devotional service easy, but it can be performed in a happy mood. One does not need to undergo any severe penance and austerity. He can live this life in devotional service, guided by an expert spiritual master, and in any position, either as a householder, or as a sannyasi, or a brahmachari, in any position, and anywhere in the world, he can perform this devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and thus become actually Mahatma, a great soul. Text 15. Jnana yagyena chapyanye yajanto mam upasate ekatvena pritaktvena bahuda vishwato mukham. Others who engage in sacrifice by the cultivation of knowledge worship the Supreme Lord as the one without a second, as diverse in many, and in the universal form. Purport. This verse is the summary of the previous verses. The Lord tells Arjuna that those who are purely in Krishna consciousness and do not know anything other than Krishna are called Mahatma. Yet there are other persons who are not exactly in the position of Mahatma, but who worship Krishna also in different ways. Some of them have already been described as the distressed, the financially destitute, the inquisitive, and those who are engaged in the cultivation of knowledge. But there are others who are still lower, and these are divided into 3. 1. He who worships himself as one with the Supreme Lord. 2. He who concocts some form of the Supreme Lord and worships that. And 3. He who accepts the universal form, the Vishwarupa of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and worships that. Out of the above three, the lowest, those who worship themselves as the Supreme Lord, thinking themselves to be monists, are most predominant. Such people think themselves to be the Supreme Lord, and in this mentality they worship themselves. This is also a type of God worship, for they can understand that they are not the material body, but are actually spiritual soul. At least, such a sense is prominent. Generally, the impersonalists worship the Supreme Lord in this way. The second class includes the worshippers of the demigods, those who by imagination consider any form to be the form of the Supreme Lord. And the third class includes those who cannot conceive of anything beyond the manifestation of this material universe. They consider the universe to be the supreme organism or entity and worship that. The universe is also a form of the Lord. Text 16. Aham kratur, aham jagya, swadaham, aham aushadam, mantroham, aham evajam, aham agnir, aham hutam. But it is I who am the ritual, I the sacrifice, the offering to the ancestors, the healing herb, the transcendental chant. I am the butter and the fire and the offering. Purport. The Vedic sacrifice known as Jyotishtoma is also Krishna, and he is also the Mahayagya mentioned in the Smriti. The oblations offered to the Pitriloka, or the sacrifice performed to please the Pitriloka, considered as a kind of drug in the form of clarified butter, is also Krishna. The mantras chanted in this connection are also Krishna, and many other commodities made with milk products for offering in the sacrifices are also Krishna. The fire is also Krishna, because fire is one of the 5 material elements and is therefore claimed as the separated energy of Krishna. In other words, the Vedic sacrifices recommended in the Karma-kanda division of the Vedas are in total also Krishna. Or, in other words, those who are engaged in rendering devotional service unto Krishna are to be understood to have performed all the sacrifices recommended in the Vedas. Hare Krishna. So that's 7:45, 45 minutes of reading almost. We will stop here, and if there are any comments, reflections, discussions, please be our transcendental guest. Hare Krishna.
First is from Rati Manjari.
Rati Manjari, Haribo Rati.
She says, Jai Guru Maharaj.
Jai Ho.
And from Sudevi Dasi. Oh, sorry. Oh yeah, Sudevi Dasi. She says, Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Sudevi Dasi.
And Santa Rupa Devi Dasi.
Haribo Santa Rupa, Hare Krishna.
She says, Haribo.
Haribo.
From Gopakanya.
Gopakanya Devi Dasi, Haribo.
She says, Hare Krishna, dear Maharaj, thank you for the daily reading service of Srila Prabhupada's books. blessed to have your association every day with all like-minded friends. Praying for your best health and long life, Maharaj, to Prabhupada and Sri Krishna.
Thank you very much. We need it. Thanks.
All glories to Sri Prabhupada.
Thank you.
And from Bhaktivedanta,
Haribol Bhaktivedanta.
he says, Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. This has been the most inspiring Kartik, having the opportunity to read with you every day. Thank you for being our continued source of inspiration in Krishna consciousness.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much.
And from Braj Balaba,
Hey, Haribol Braj, Haribol.
he says, Hare Krishna Maharaj. This is why Prabhupada says the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because we fall in love with Krishna's personality, not his all-pervasive qualities, which are of course amazing, but it is him we want.
Exactly. And not only that, he is the source of all those other things.
And from Anandamurti Devi Dasi,
Haribol Anandamurti.
she says, Jai Guru Maharaj and all assembled devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Jai, all glories to his divine grace.
Thank you so much for today's reading. Today's purport of the 11th verse, Prabhupada explains that, quote, we properly respect each and every body in which the Paramatma dwells. Everyone should therefore be given proper respect and should not be neglected.
Yes.
Unquote. I pray so that I could apply this transcendental vision all the time, including during book distribution and taking care of the family.
Very good, very good. Actually, Anandamurti lives in Osaka. She's Japanese. And I visited there a couple of times. And I noticed that in the culture, there are practical ways that they respect one another. You know, they bow, and depending on the level of relationship, their bow is deeper. And we took a high-speed train from Tokyo to Osaka, and we couldn't afford the express, so we took the one that stopped at every station on the way. And the ticket, I don't know what they call them in Japan, but we call them what? The conductor? Not conductors, but the people who come and take the tickets. When they come into the coach, the train, what do we call them? Coaches, the train coach. They stand and they bow like this. And then they take all the tickets, and when they get to the other side, they turn around and they bow again toward all the customers. And that's typical of the mentality of the Japanese people. Prabhupada said that they would be the last to become devotees, but they would be the best devotees. So I pray that Anandamurti continues to advance in devotional life and becomes the best devotee. Hare Krishna.
More from Braj Balaba.
Haribo. Jai Braj.
He says, Maharaj, how could someone actually worship themselves? I mean, this is such a concoction of complete nonsense. I am totally unable to even understand this.
Well, that's because you're a devotee. But a person who is so covered by ignorance, it's the influence of the mode of ignorance. The desire, in the heart of the person, the desire to be God is so strong that he can actually think like that. It's the modes of nature giving facility to a person to fulfill a desire. It's just that the desire is so what's the word, misled. The person is misled. His desires are, Therefore it's hard for a devotee to understand that. It's impossible for a devotee to understand it. So I take it as a good sign that you can't understand how that's possible. Hare Krishna.
And from Bhakta-Rupa,
Haribol Bhakta-Rupa.
He says, thank you, Maharaj.
Haribol, Hare Krishna, thank you.
And Vilas Manjari,
Hey, Vilas Manjari, Haribol.
she says, Dear Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. I really appreciate how clear everything is laid out in this section, both in Krishna's words and in the commentary. Hearing this, it's a no-brainer to take shelter of the divine nature and surrender to Krishna.
Yes. Truer words were never spoken. That was well put. Thank you very much, Vilas Manjari. Thank you so much. Well said. And that's what happens when we surrender to Krishna and we agree to repeat his words. Devotees agree to repeat his words because his words are so profound. They're more profound than any other words, actually. Sometimes we may take for granted as devotees the level of conversation we have as just a normal daily life. But most people, they don't think, in their whole lives, a few sentences, or any sentences actually, that are profound as the discussions that the devotees have with one another about Krishna and about spiritual life and the absolute truth. So probably, not probably, we should definitely have compassion on them and try in some way or another, to engage them in devotional service, even if they do the littlest thing. Just like the other day in that video, Vaisheshika Prabhu got a man to give him his lighter after kind of tricking him by agreeing to take a cigarette pack or a cigarette, and finally got the lighter because the person understood that wasn't right. And in that way, by his exchange, he engaged that person in some kind of favorable exchange, and he became more, how do you say, more eligible to do devotional service. So we should feel compassion on people who think that they're God, and point out to them that they're not God because they can't even do what they want to do. Krishna can do whatever he wants to do. There are no impediments. But all of us are faced with so many impediments. Like Brajbalabha said, just to think yourself to be God is ludicrous, it's preposterous, it's ridiculous. Hare Krishna.
Next is from Daitari Haridas.
Daitari Haridas, Haribol.
He says, Hare Krishna Maharaj, thanks for another wonderful reading. I really liked the point at the end of the purport to verse 11 about offering proper respect to all beings in which the Paramatma dwells and not neglecting anyone. I wish I could treat people as a friend. I have yet to conquer the demonic tendencies to accept and reject people on the basis of what's pleasing to me. It seems hard to overcome this. I worry I may sometimes offend certain people. Is it wise to beg Krishna for help in dealing with all types of people in all types of situations, instead of mechanically intellectualizing the principle that he's in the heart of the person I'm dealing with? I hope my question makes sense.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. The thing is, it's not that we act toward everyone the same, even though we offer them in our hearts the proper respect that they deserve for having Krishna inside their body. It's not that we approach a tiger, and try to be friendly with him and make friends because he's got Krishna inside, because he does. We offer respect, but the way we offer respect is different than the way we offer respect to a human being, or especially a person favorable. It's not that we should treat everybody the same. And actually, the fact is that you're doing the best thing that you can possibly do, to go out and try to give Krishna conscious literature and to engage them in devotional service by giving donations for the temple. That's the best way you can behave with people, to give them an opportunity to get purified and to get contact with devotees. Because without that, there's no hope for them. So this is the austerity that the devotees do. They perform this austerity to go out. There are people in India who were great tapasvis, who have told devotees. Anyway, I won't go into the details, but there was one story where one great sannyasi who lived on the top of a mountain in a temple and worshipped Nishinga Shila that was passed down almost since time immemorial, according to the history. And he was so protected. He was trained from the very beginning. He was chosen to be in that position, like I think it was 5 or 7 years old, and was trained and protected. He always had people around him. He had to carry a stick. There was a certain distance along, so that nobody that was not proper could come close to him. And when this devotee came to him looking for some guidance and for some shelter because of some difficulty he had gone through, that great sannyasi said, I don't want to take birth, or even go back to the spiritual world. I want to take birth in your Gurukula, in the ISKCON Gurukula, so that I can be trained and go out into the big cities of the world and distribute this Krishna consciousness. He said, I'm so constrained by the rules and by the culture and by the tradition that I'm in. It's like I'm in a prison. I want to go out, but I can't. Imagine. Just imagine. So to be able to go out on the order of Srila Prabhupada and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and meet people of all kinds of philosophical and persuasions, and try to give them Prabhupada's books, you're doing the best thing that you can do. So you don't need to worry about the intricate details that you're worried about. You just have to use your energy to try to help please Srila Prabhupada and our previous acharyas, and try to give real knowledge to them. And gradually you'll be able to be given the discrimination, just like we just heard in one of these purports, that a person who is atheistic and is against Krishna, he shouldn't even be allowed into a ritual, a Vedic ritual. He should be driven out. So that may seem harsh and it may seem unfair, but the fact is that we have to keep ourselves pure, and we have to keep our movement pure, and therefore we have to allow only people who are sincere enough to follow these regulative principles and agree to chant Hare Krishna. We all welcome everyone. We welcome everyone. But if they're too contaminated and too much of a disturbance to the spiritual atmosphere of our temples and our ashrams, then they shouldn't be allowed to come. Even though they are temples of God, even though the Supersoul is in their hearts also. In this way, we have to learn to apply the philosophy in a practical way that keeps ourselves strong spiritually and in the proper mentality to try to help others, but at the same time, intelligence, so that we don't allow ourselves to become influenced by bad influence just because they're also souls. I hope I made myself clear. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for all of your wonderful reflections. Tonight was particularly nice reflections. I apologize for my voice. Somehow or other it's just not very strong today. But it was a wonderful section of the book, especially like one of you said, that the purport to Avajananti Ma Mudha is so clear and so powerful. It's meant to give us discrimination as well as compassion. Srimad Bhagavad-gita As It Is, Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhaktivedanta Ki Jai. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. Thank you very much, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow night, same time, same place, same topic. The unfolding of Krishna's all-merciful instructions to Arjuna, the Bhagavad-gita As It Is. Hare Krishna. See you tomorrow.